Why is Africa the forgotten continent regarding energy and economic development?
I think if you look across the global energy system, you will see that Africa is probably the least talked about aspect of it and the least well understood. And this is actually a tragic set of circumstances that needs to be addressed. It's still the case that the energy situation in Africa is very similar to one that we haven't seen here in Europe for generations, with a huge proportion of the population, hundreds of millions of people not having access to electricity at all, and an even larger proportion of the population only being able to cook and rely on basic fuels like fuel wood, charcoal, animal dung and agricultural waste to cook their food. And while they're cooking their food, they're breathing in indoor air pollution that is leading to hundreds of thousands of premature deaths every year. And that's just one tragic example of how the energy sector in Africa is failing its citizens. So what we really need to see is that if we want to see Africa's economic and social development overall improve, and to see them prosper in the way that many other parts of the world have, energy is a critical enabler to make that social and economic development happen. So we need to see much greater emphasis on the development of the energy sector, which is why the inclusion of energy in the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations last year was just one positive example that shows that people in the wider world now recognize how important the energy sector is to Africa's future prosperity.
And what can we expect about that in that sense for the future of Africa?
So I think we're already seeing some positive steps. We're already seeing levels of investment in the energy sector increase from where they were. We're already seeing senior level political buy-in increase, policy efforts increase, but it's still nowhere near enough. So, some of the fastest growing economies in the world are in Africa, but they're still being held back by the fact that the energy sector is not supporting that economic development. And so we will see energy demand across the continent continue to increase. We will see levels of electricity supply increase, demand for all fuels increase. But under the current outlook, even in future decades, even by 2040, the level of energy development in Africa will still not be anywhere close to the level that we see here in Europe or in North America or elsewhere. So there is still a lot more that needs to be done if we want to see a really kind of positive forward step, because for every positive step we see in the energy sector, that will enable positive steps in economic growth, in health, in education, in jobs, in all other aspects of African society.
Of course. And what can we do, or how can we stimulate more rapid social development in Africa?
So I think there's an important role in Europe and elsewhere. There's a lot of activity in Africa from other countries trying to support African governments to develop their energy sector. There's been, an increased investment in recent years. I think it's something that we have to continue to prioritize at a political level to show that it's how important we view the issue. There is a need generally to take action to try and improve what we would call the enabling environment that can then allow the energy sector investment to flow. So that means robust and stable legal and regulatory frameworks, robust and reliable policies, so that energy companies can see what they should expect in future and make the investment decisions based on this stable policy environment. These are things that countries across Europe and elsewhere have been doing for decades. We have developed our energy sectors. What a lot of African countries are aspiring to are things that we have already done and we already know how to do. So we really should just be showing that we are keen and supportive to try and help them achieve what we already have in many countries here.